Okay, we made it through a very crazy time. We're not totally in the clear because life doesn't work that way. And so there's a little more to come before we get like a break, I guess. Does anybody really get a break? Because it depends on how things hit your chart in your life. So Monday, again, like 2 Mondays ago when I was like, Monday, nothing happens. And so much happened because the moon was applying to Uranus. So if you actually watched the whole video after I said that, you would see how that wasn't true. And this Monday is kind of like, feels like a brooding, stagnant, we're resolving the ending and it's not comfortable, probably. So the moon is in between, the moon is in Scorpio, which is just going to be a bit dramatic, it's the moon, still ruled our last Scorpio moon of these couple years that's ruled by Mars in Cancer. Mars is almost through transiting Cancer. That's been like a 6-month transit. But on Monday, the moon is in the sign of its fall, ruled by Mars in the sign of its fall. So the moon in the place it likes to be the least, that the moon part of our lives, functioning not the best, and presided over by like its boss, working for Mars in also the place where it likes to be the least, although Mars has overcome a lot and it could be way worse. Anything could always be way worse, but Monday, that's kind of the mindset to have, is it could be worse. What are you grateful for? Why are you even watching this? Just live your life and be present. That's the hardest thing in the world. Being calculating is not hard. So Tuesday, a lot. There are many aspects completing on Tuesday, so it makes up for the fact that Monday was just sort of in a limbo period. Also, if you want to get this early, I'm recording this way early because I'm giving my members early access to the weekly video. If you joined last week, you will have already received it on Friday instead of Sunday or Tuesday, as I have been wont to do in recent months. But if you sign up for the membership, you'll get it on Friday. And there's a higher tier of the membership where we're reading the Picatrix together. And what else? That's all I have to tell you right now. Meaning that's all I have to tell you about the membership. I have a lot to tell you about this week. So Tuesday. In the morning, the moon trines Venus. So this is complicated, just like Monday was complicated. This is the moon in the sign of its fall, ruled by Mars in the sign of its fall. So this is something like in bad condition, our needs, our emotional attunement, in not great condition, prone to like getting stuck in emotional traps, like taking something that doesn't feel good and fixating upon it. Everybody's doing that, some more than others, depending on your chart. Like if the moon was in Scorpio when you were born, then today and Monday, I'm talking about Tuesday. Okay. I don't even have my remote control thingy, so I have to like reach. So everybody's going to feel this way for the most part, but it depends on what your relationship is with the moon. You'll maybe be more prone to fixating upon negative emotions and not being able to get out of it if you were born with the moon in Scorpio. So that's the moon sort of amplifying your pre-existing disposition. And if you were born with the moon in Taurus, you might be, depending on your chart, less likely to fall into these sorts of traps. But that's the vibe of Monday and Tuesday. Watch out for fixating on things that don't feel good in a way that ends up making them worse. We're in a point, this is a week of resolution. It's a week that is very much about how like things used to be that way and now they're going to be this way. And you can really see the moon, or there are a lot of aspects completing this week that are like the third and final aspect happening in the sign of Aries instead of in Pisces where the first two happened. But I'll talk about those more in detail as we move on. So Tuesday, so many things happening on Tuesday. The moon is trining Venus, and I was trying to tell you about that a minute ago, but I was rambling. So this is the moon in fall. I already described that. It's trining Venus, like near the degree of her exaltation, pretty close, 24. Exaltation degrees, 26. Is it oh my God. Okay, whatever. I'm just going to own up to it. So I know, like, in my mind, it's Venus exalts at the 27th degree of Pisces, that would be 26, right? I'm being very vulnerable. Venus is just stationed and she's almost exalted, whichever the F degree that is. So I'm okay with being vulnerable. I believe it's 26 then, if it's the 27th. Because if it were 27 degrees Pisces, then the source text would say that Venus exalts at the 28th degree. Am I right? Anybody? It's very vulnerable to be willing to be corrected on something so technical that I know. I have a thing too. I think I've told you before where I know the answer. It's just like maths. I'm not good at quick maths or like quick recall of important details. I'm better at being psychic, or I'm not really very good at that. I'm trying to get better. Or I'm good at other stuff. But anyway, look it up and tell me the answer. Embarrassing. So it's kind of like that. Bittersweet. We're okay with being vulnerable. The moon, we're trapped. Maybe the moon is trining Venus. I'm still talking about this. The moon is trining Venus on Tuesday morning. This is also all day Monday. Emotions are dramatic, heightened, butthurt, prone to like taking something and fixating on it. But it's trining Venus, exalted Venus in Pisces. So we're okay with holding that vulnerability and sadness and possible tragedy. Why are we even going there? It doesn't have to be bad. It could just be, we go through dramatic times. We all, like, I think we've all been through times where, like, we make something worse from our emotions. So Monday and Tuesday have that signature of, like, there's just it doesn't have to be bad. It's just the potential to make things worse by acting rashly. And that is especially heightened because the moon is the next aspect, the moon's next aspect after trining Venus is in opposition with Uranus. So really, like, if we go back to Monday, watch out for blow-ups. Excuse me. Duck and cover, not like from yourself. Like, make sure that you are grounded. Maybe have some food. Make sure you eat. You're grounded in your body. You're not gonna like fly off into emotional outer space, never to return, and destroying things on your way up in the rocket blast tail of fire of your capacity for emotional destruction. Don't do that. Just have some food, move your body, calm down. So much easier said than done. One of the times in my life where it was like, this is a calm down period. You need to calm down and like, don't make any rash decisions. I made a rash decision that altered the entire course of my life. So sometimes you can't stop these things. But that's the signature of Monday and Tuesday. And then we get more, I think we get a little bit, after we make it through the morning, most of the rest of the day is the moon making a trine with Saturn, Mars, and Mercury. So this is like, it's like a difficult, Tuesday feels like it's full of difficulty, there's plenty of stuff that just naturally doesn't do all that great. So maybe we are feeling vulnerable because of our flaws or because of things we wish we hadn't done in the past. But there's the ability to make it constructive. So, and I'm talking about Tuesday again. There's the ability to make it constructive. Make good use of bad things or something. So the moon is trining Saturn in Pisces. Venus is on Saturn. So there is a heaviness, there's a seriousness. Normally if Venus were stationing, had just stationed in Pisces on a full moon in Libra, how fun. But this gives it a weight, or it could give it like a weight of the past. The benefits that come from Venus will come only from things that you've been working at for a long time. Things that were long overdue, or endings, or consequences. I think if you've been just like Mardi Gras-ing the entire Lent, the entire Venus retrograde, which this Venus retrograde, I mentioned it before, coincides pretty much exactly with Lent, which is very just symbolically beautiful, because Venus retrograde at any time of the year, that the symbolism of that time, the significations of like what it means, things mean what they mean in astrology because of what they are, for Venus to disappear below the earth, die, and be reborn as a morning star 40 days later, is the closest astrological event to the passion of the Christ, the Jesus dying and being reborn story. So, where was I? Oh, if you've been Mardi Gras-ing the entire time, then you'll see consequences for your actions. Venus retrograde is normally a time to like abstain from pleasures, which that's one of the things that makes it very similar to Lent. And so if you haven't been abstaining from pleasures, Saturn is the planet of consequences. So I don't know whether the Saturn thing is going to be good or bad for you. And even if it is bad, it's that's what's best for you. And I'm saying it for myself. So, but I haven't really been. I did kind of, I mean, I could give you a Venus retrograde post-mortem later, but my thing was I'm going to quit caffeine, I'm going to quit sugar, I'm going to quit jewelry. And I did quit jewelry, and that was hard. And now I'm used to it, and I'm excited to wear jewelry again. And I did quit sugar except for a week in the middle where my mom came to visit, and then I ate sugar. And looking back, I see that I didn't like need to do that. I just thought like food and family for me are really important, so I didn't want to have to hold back. But I see how like holding that boundary could have been a good thing, and I see how like there are many things that ensued after that I feel like, oh, if I had done in the spirit of remediation, if I had actually stopped, like not had any sugar during that time, maybe these other things would have magically not happened, but we'll never know. And then I was going to quit caffeine. If you've been watching for a long time, you'll know that I quit caffeine back in October, but in February, mired in a very intense project, doing a lot of knowledge work, heavy lifting, I ordered something from Starbucks, and I was accidentally served a caffeinated drink, and I didn't know it until I was about halfway through, and by that time I was having a really good time, so I just finished it, because what the hell. And then a couple days later, I was offered caffeine, and I said yes. And then I never looked back. I was like, well, Venus retrograde is coming, so I'll just quit for the Venus retrograde. And then in eclipse season, I had a deadline. I had 2 deadlines, like this big questionnaire I needed to fill out, which was an absolute pleasure. I was excited to do it. And then a piece of writing, which I'm going to link to where you can get this journal. It's my favorite thing I have written so far. It's one of my favorite things I've written so far. So, and it's a very secret, it's a very underground journal. So you have to like send a bike messenger at 2 p.m. in the afternoon and say a secret word to actually obtain a copy of this. But you should go get it. There are other talented artists and writers featured in this journal. Where was I? Anyway, I wrote that. I basically channeled it in a fever dream of caffeine during the Venus retrograde on the first day of spring. And I'm very proud of it. And it is, in my opinion, a very accurate description of how to handle the upcoming time, not just spring 2025, but the next year. Okay, so the moon trines, what was I even saying? Oh, I was telling you about Venus retrograde and how if you've been just enjoying your pleasures, you might experience some consequences, or there might be, with Saturn right on Venus. The moon's trining Saturn from Scorpio, so activator of the zodiac. There might be some sort of dramatic, because it's the moon in Scorpio, confrontation or contact with some sort of consequences of you just like enjoying your same ass pleasures throughout this 40 days, the past few weeks. And the moon also trines Mars. So the moon trining Mars and Saturn. Tuesday might be a good candidate for like just nose to the grindstone stuff. You might not want to have like a free-form day of, maybe like running into someone, or you might want to like lock yourself in your room and work on something that takes a lot of dedication and concentration. And just wring out all the Mars and Saturn you can out of this constructive contact with the moon. You might be in the mood too also because of whatever Monday put you through, if it put you through anything. You might be a trooper and like you can handle that emotional weight. And then Tuesday evening, the moon moves into Sagittarius. Thank goodness. So we got through the heaviness of Monday and Tuesday, which I'm recording this in the past. So Monday and Tuesday is the future to me. And I haven't worked out yet today. So I'm not as happy as I could be. So when I think about Monday and Tuesday, I'm a human being. I get sad and scared. And that's my like extreme sensitivity. But you don't have to be sad and scared. You can be ready to take on whatever that is, because if you take it on head on and just run straight into whatever you're scared of, that's where the rewards are. So on Tuesday, the moon moves into Sagittarius, and then the moon trines Neptune in Aries from Sagittarius. And that seems really fun and exciting, and a shift in tone. So Tuesday night, you can maybe let your hair down a little bit more. And then Mercury also moves into Aries. So everything is shifting, starting to shift from Pisces to Aries. And the moon is like zapping Neptune to let us know that like, okay, the beginning is beginning. The ending is ending. The beginning is beginning. It's been like that for a while, but now we're pushing more towards the beginning. We'll get another taste of the ending in the fall and winter. So Wednesday, now Mercury's in Aries, so if you'll wake up to kind of a different world on Wednesday. And the first thing that happens, this will be like, if you're up late Tuesday night at the after party, the moon will sextile Pluto, and that might feel like kind of exhilarating, empowering, or maybe a little scary, or like undercurrents of something deeper going on with the future. If you feel like that, then you're right. Maybe you got this early because you joined the membership and you watched this on Friday. You're watching this on Friday, and maybe you ordered that journal. That, I guess, do I even put those notes? See, I haven't. This is only the second one I posted early, so I don't even know. But I guess I'll post a link to that journal in the membership area too. So maybe on Wednesday you magically got that soon. I don't even think they're shipping it until this day. But Moon sextile Pluto, Moon in Sagittarius, sextile Pluto in Aquarius. Feels like that's our Neuralink aspect. It feels like the thing I wrote. And so there's like Tuesday, like a little optimism about the future, a little like moving the old trauma out of our bodies. But there's something deeper and bigger going on. Lord Business is at the party. And on Wednesday also, so Wednesday is just the moon applying to an opposition with Jupiter, which goes exact on Thursday morning. And Mercury conjoining Neptune in Aries. So this is our first aspect that's like the part 3 of 3 this week. There have been others, I think. So the first, this is one example of, I'm losing my train of thought, hang on. Okay, so especially if Mercury is your time lord, your ascendant ruler, it's an important planet for you all the time or just this year, you will have noticed something on March 2nd. That was part 1 of this Mercury-Neptune story in Pisces. And then March 29th was part 2, and that Mercury was retrograde. We were in between. I guess we were like just coming out of eclipse season is the day of the eclipse. And now, and that was also in Pisces. And now Mercury is conjoining Neptune in Aries. So a big part of the story has shifted now over to the new chapter or something. That's a weird way to put it, but anyway, part 3 of 3. This is big. Mercury conjoins Neptune in Aries. Our first conjunction of a planet. Besides a luminary, I can't remember right now. That's me, like, I can't do the quick math, so I'm going to look like an idiot. Like, I don't know how to do astrology, saying, I don't know if the moon has conjoined Neptune yet, but I have too many other things to think about. I got to set up my lights and do all these other things, so please don't use this clip and say I'm the worst astrologer of the year, because I don't even know things. Because I do. And can you see I'm working out my own shit of like insecurity, fear of being ridiculed, and I'm okay with it. Or at least I'm saying that I am. So Thursday. Wednesday feels like much more uplifting, by the way, than Monday and Tuesday. So Thursday in the morning, optimistic morning, with the moon opposing Jupiter. And then once we're past that, the moon is still in Sagittarius, headed for a square with Venus in Pisces. And that's pretty much all of Thursday. At the end of the day, so the square with Venus in Pisces happens at night. And it happens right around the same time Mars moves into Leo. Thank God. Praise be. Mars is no longer in the sign of its fall, which Mars has been in Cancer since October, I think. Whatever, that's the quick math. This is basically a 6-month transit of Mars in Cancer with a 2-month break, November and December. So we'll be looking back to the last time Mars was in Leo. Normally, Mars takes about 2 years to transit to like come back to a sign. So Mars transits a sign every 2 years. But since we had a Mars retrograde this year, Mars was in Leo last November 3rd through January 6th. So November 3rd, 2024, this past November through basically the day that the Los Angeles fires started. So whatever was going on around that time, you might have found that you got something started that now can like finally move to completion. I can think of a couple things in my life that are that. So that's inspiring and a lot more fun. And, maybe depending on what Leo is for you, it might not be more fun. But for the most part, Mars functions much better in Leo. And now we're not going to be afraid to start a fight or it's very much like feats of strength. Or let me show you how strong I am. Let me show you how brave I am. Mars is like that for a lot of, that's just kind of how Mars is. However, in Leo, this is in the sign of the sun. So a part of it pertains to visibility. So being able to show, being visibly angry or visibly dealing with conflict. Hulk Hogan has Mars in Leo. It's very much like feats of strength. And Mars will be in Leo until mid-June. Another date that I've looked at just over and over again because I make calendars, so I know when this is. I look at it all the time, but I just don't have these things on hand in my brain. I'm not the one to do that in this life. So that's Thursday. Thursday is mostly the moon just squaring Venus in Pisces. So your desire to want to party maybe comes up against this like large, grand story that is culminating or has culminated, and now like the results are spilling out. So my videos are so orange, and I don't know why. So I'm excited to go back to my videos being purple. So also Thursday night, after the moon squares Venus, the moon squares Saturn in Pisces. So Thursday night might feel like maybe kind of a bummer, maybe just like some friction, like you want to go out, but you can't. Or like someone cancels on you, or someone doesn't want to go with you to a thing, or there are some like institutional rules that prevent you from doing it. Or like the boss wants it quiet and peaceful, so you can't run around and go crazy. And Friday, early in the morning, the moon moves into Capricorn. So we're getting more serious. Hang on. You might find some like missed connections. It's a little Mercury retrograde-y. Friday morning, the moon moves into Capricorn, and it squares Neptune in Aries, and it squares Mercury in Aries. So trying to get things done, take care of business. There might be like some misconnections or misunderstandings, or it's better suited for a work of creativity, a moon in Capricorn creativity. So I can't think of anything good right now. Some sort of like like your ice sculpture, your whimsical ice sculptures that use a chainsaw to carve. Something like someone turns the heater on and it melts all your handiwork, and you had to order giant ice blocks all over again for this event or something. And so Friday, it's kind of weird. Like Friday and Saturday are like, they like really stretch time out. Because there's this like Neptune, Mercury stuff in the morning. And then the moon doesn't make another aspect until Sunday morning, and that's a sextile with Venus. So there's something nice. This is the moon in Capricorn, so the moon in detriment. The beneficial contacts of the moon with Venus this week seem to be when the moon is not in good shape. But so now the moon is in better shape than it was Monday and Tuesday. And it's making the sextile is Venus's aspect, an easy contact with exalted Venus. That feels nice. Definitely much nicer, again, than Monday and Tuesday. So that's Friday, and then Saturday, we're in Taurus season. Really moving on with the story is definitely moving forward. We're out of all the insanery of March, and there's plenty of weird stuff coming. But March was really intense, and it was like, be careful, don't knock anything over, nobody make a smell. Have you seen Futurama? That there's like a scene where they like shrink themselves into microscopic, and then they go up and they go into somebody's ear, but then they're traveling like past a nasal canal. And the doctor's like, nobody make a smell. That was March, except it was Aries, not Scorpio. Scorpio is associated with the nose, and stuff that has to do with smell. And smell is an emotional portal and a vector of emotional control. So that's why I made that distinction. All this was happening in Mars's sign. Anyway, I'm just all over the place. So Saturday, the sun moves in to Taurus. Saturn is going to move into Aries during Taurus season. So now we're buckling in for a different type of change, a different like longer term type of change. But a lot of May and June is really nice and much less like, what's the word I'm looking for? Contentious than March. But what I was saying with like, nobody make a smell, was like, March was like, I felt like I had to just move through March in a straitjacket, and like, I'm not allowed to touch anything. That can be a flawed way of moving through the world and through this one precious life, thinking you can't do anything out of fear. So there's something for me to think about. And Neptune and Mars make their third trine together of this Mars retrograde 6-month story. So this is another one of those, like the Mercury thing earlier in the week with Mercury conjoining Neptune. Mars is making its third trine with Neptune. And the first one was on October 28th, 2024. That was Mars in Cancer, trining Neptune in Pisces. And then January 12th, 2025, Mars trined Neptune again. Mars in Cancer, trining Neptune in Pisces. And so now this is the third, because when planets are retrograde, they'll make 3 aspects usually with outer planets or slower moving planets. This is number 3 of 3, and it's Mars in Leo trining Neptune in Aries. So that's exciting and seems less sad. I remember that January Mars Neptune trine, that was very emotional. And it's also Mars Neptune is like, what, like, why are you picking a fight? Whatever the effect is, it's likely to also be somehow illusory. Like it's going to feel like, oh, this is the real thing. But it may or may not be. It depends on your relationship with Mars and Neptune. So Sunday, first thing in the morning, we finally get that moon sextile Venus aspect completing. So a nice morning, and the moon also trines Uranus around the same time, and Venus sextiles Uranus around the same time. Another 3 of 3. That's January 26th. Venus sextiled. Did I really? Wow. Okay, so January 26th, and then April 7th. So last week, kind of, yeah, last Monday, when Mercury stationed. And now, today is Sunday, April 20th. Venus makes its third of 3 sextiles with Uranus. So what happened January 26th and April 7th? April 7th was probably maybe like a little more notable because that is the day that Mercury stationed. So something like all these planets were together. And when planets are stationing, their like significations intensify. So Venus was almost stationing. There's something like probably more notable about the April 7th Venus sextile Uranus than the January 26th one, unless that was like hitting something in your chart specifically. And also we get 3 of 3 Mercury sextile Pluto. And this is very like, so the first Mercury sextile Pluto was March 5th, Mercury in Aries, and then Mercury in Aries, Mercury retrograde, sextile Pluto in Aquarius was March 25th. And now, today, Sunday, April 20th, Mercury makes its third sextile with Pluto. And this is very like, you can go back to those weeks where I talk about this. Something is up with the metaverse. This is very like, we're moving into the metaverse. And I think, I know recently this isn't like exactly coincides more with like the station, Mercury's station, which is in Pisces. But there was a news headline about how like the White House or something shut down like this crypto enforcement thing that the stodgy old last minute administration or whatever, they were like enforcing crypto stuff, and now they're saying like, we're not going to like bother you unless you're like drug trafficking or something. And that's like setting us up for the metaverse, the more mandatory metaverse, which is Neptune, Saturn, Neptune in Aries, sextile Pluto in Aquarius. And this is like laying some preliminary groundwork. So look back, March 5th, March 25th, April 20th. If I were doing the tech news, I would probably have like stuff ready to tell you about that happened on those days, but I stopped doing the tech news because I just don't care anymore. I mostly want to worry about living in the physical world and having a physical body. So in the middle of the day on Sunday, the moon moves into Aquarius. So that's going to accentuate this Mercury-Pluto sextile, 3 of 3. And the moon doesn't conjoin Pluto until nighttime, and it does a bunch of other stuff. But you'll find that, like, I think Sunday afternoon, the tone begins to shift, like more into the future. It was kind of a little more oriented towards the past, the first part of Sunday. And so the moon in Aquarius makes a sextile with Uranus in Aries. Fun, futuristic, and something about the importance of banding together and going to war. And then the moon in Taurus squares Mars and Leo. So that's a little rough. And planets, when they aspect each other, to me, they get a taste of each other. So it could be way worse, but the sun gets a taste of itself in Leo, and Mars gets a taste of its detriment in Taurus. So that seems like whatever you want solved in the Mars area of your life is not quite, it's going to get tested. I guess, like tested by authority. Maybe tested in a way that's not fair, but tests are what help us grow and become stronger, more powerful beings. So, and this happens like at the same exact time. The moon is opposing Mars. So the moon in Aquarius opposing Mars in Leo. That's the first word that comes to mind is explosive, but I don't think it has to be. It's just like we're ready to like keep on feeling this Mars relief now that Mars is in Leo. But Mars is always somewhere. So that's like the problems, it's like whack-a-mole, like, yay, my problem went away in that area and now it's over here. It's going to be over here for 6 weeks. And at the end of the day, the moon conjoins Pluto. So the moon opposing Mars and about to conjoin Pluto is like, normally I wouldn't give the moon a ton more power in Aquarius. Moon opposite Mars, like neither have like a specific dignity, but the Mars is kind of getting it from all sides, like squaring the sun and opposing Pluto, headed towards an opposition with Pluto, and the moon activating this Mars-Pluto signature that's coming up that has not gone exact yet. So it's like Mars and Leo getting in trouble with authority. The sun, the divine right of kings, or the like corrupt management with Pluto and Aquarius. And on Monday, as you can see, the North Node conjoins Saturn. So everything about Saturn is turned way up. And Saturn is a malefic. So that means bad. And it doesn't mean that everything is bad. It just means that things are a lot heavier than they would be if Saturn were not with the North Node right now. And you're going to feel this all week long. So I hope you watched to the end to know about this. But you can also see on the calendar. So with the moon conjoining Pluto, Pluto is like roughly opposite Mars now, and the North Node with Saturn, there is like, it feels like everything ganging up on Mars. Like you're not, you think you won, but not yet. It feels just heavy-handed is the term I get. Remember, your Wi-Fi is a camera that can see through walls.